It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful.
Warning: the program you are about to watch is intended for those with an open mind. We speak freely and openly about topics that affect the well-being of all people. Our intention is not to offend, disrespect, or harm anyone, nor are our views hateful in any way. With that being said, if you are overly sensitive, lack independent thought, or follow the masses blindly, this show probably isn't for you. Enjoy! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Stupid Steve and Ian Daibo, and we are back for episode 3 of Penny for Your Thoughts. And today we are talking the moon landing, and was it fake? Was it staged? What do you think, Ian? You think we got a good one here?
Yeah, well, when I said to Steve last week after we did the Mandela effect, you pick because I felt like I've picked and kind of pushed in the direction of the Rothschild for sure. And you know something, I was sat there and I was saying to my wife, I hope he picks the moon landing. It's just something about it just screamed out to me, and he did. And it was like I had to tell him because we had just done the Mandela effect, and I mentioned on the show that week there was so much things happening that were syncing up, and it was just another one to add to the week. So here it is, the moon landing.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
All right, so you sent me quite a bit of stuff on the moon landing. This is it's something that I am not completely 100% sold on. I am not, I wouldn't even say even close to being sold on. I just think there's a lot of stuff going into this. What's your initial thoughts for the moon landing stuff?
Well, see, throughout the 3 years I've listened to podcasts like literally every day, I'm not exaggerating, and I've heard possibly 5 or 6 episodes on the Apollo 11. I know there's also conspiracies on Apollo 1 and Apollo 13. Apollo 1 was the one where there was a cabin fire in a a practice run, and all 8 astronauts, I think it was, died in it. And also in Apollo 13, that was the one that they actually took off, and only maybe a few minutes into the sky, and it blew up. There are conspiracies in those, but I think the main one is the one we're going to focus on tonight, and that is the Apollo 11 with Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins.
Right. I think there's just so much. It would have to be a major conspiracy. But before we dig into that real quick, do you have because we did a show last week. If you guys watched it, hopefully you guys checked it out. If you didn't, make sure you check it out on YouTube at Penny for Your Thoughts. Mandela Effect. You have the poll results from last week, because I think this is interesting to find out who thought what.
Yep. So we should really have, we've debated a couple times this week, and I spoke to my wife, we should really have had this poll up pre-show, the week building up to the show. But then again, it's still interesting, and, people will tune in hopefully to hear the results, because I found them quite interesting. So I'm just getting up the poll just now, and I stuck it up during the week. I put in the ones that we talked about in the show, and I think a couple of others. So one of the main ones that I found interesting was the Berenstein Bears one. So 12 people took the vote on our Instagram. 11 people voted for Steen, Stein, and only one person voted for Stain. The correct answer was Stain, and that was Sean Denby. So I don't know if you guessed Sean or if you knew that, but that leads into these 11 people thought it was Steen, which is the wrong answer. So that leads into, a positive for the Mandela effect. The other one I want to touch on was the C3PO. Only one person again got that one right, and that was your wife, Tanya with a J. She said the silver leg, which only one person out of, I think, 14 people, and she was the only one. The monocle, only 2 people voted for no monocle. And the Febreze, 3 people voted for the correct answer. Tom Hanks saying life was like a box of chocolates. Nobody voted for was, which is the right answer. And then mirror, mirror on the wall again, 2 people voted for the right answer and the other 12 voted for the wrong answer. So I found them, the rest of them were all like 6 people voted one way and 5 people voted the other way. So they weren't, really worth mentioning. I like to see the ones that were like 12 and 0 or 13 and 1, For an opening statement for the moon landing, I've heard this phrase for quite a while now said by one of the guys I've listened to, and it's basically that 9/11, JFK, and the moon landing are like kind of the benchmarks for conversational. If anyone asks about conspiracies or wants to get into it with you, you ask them their beliefs on those 3: 9/11, JFK, and the moon landing. And if they believe the official narrative on those, then you kind of just end the conversation right there. It's like, it's just for your own sanity, because if you still believe the official narrative on those, and that's not a dig at anyone, possibly maybe you haven't looked into it, or I don't know, you just trust the government, and that's what we are on here to do, is kind of make you realize it. Question these things. Don't just sit back and watch the TV and trust them, because money, power, corruption, it happens in everyday life. So I don't know why people would question that it wouldn't happen at those levels. So for me, straight off the bat, I'm going to say I'm going to say 99% on the moon landing was hoaxed. And maybe tonight, if Steve brings up something, like I say, I'm not going to be 100% on anything. I'm never going to be that sure, because as we've seen throughout history, things can be corrupted and that. So I'm open to changing my mind, but it will be a really hard task. So let's just see how the show goes and how it pans out.
Yeah, it's going to be it's interesting, because I am not sold on the whole moon landing is fake thing, just because the sheer cover up that would have to take place, and the amount of just people that were involved in this that would have to the amount of work it would go into faking this thing, and the amount, and for what really. And I guess when we get into it, we'll kind of present this information the best we can, but this is something that I'm very, very skeptical of, that it was faked, for that matter. I believe that we did go to the moon, and that we have been to the moon. Maybe I'm the crazy one on this one, especially being a bit of a conspiracy theorist, not buying into it. But it's going to be interesting as we go through some of this information, because the more information, the messed up part about this, the more information I find on the moon landing, the more I start to lean to, well, maybe it was staged. Because when you're looking for information on the moon landing, you find mostly stuff that is, it just doesn't seem right. Something doesn't add up. Something, and I'm trying my best to debunk this thing, but you just simply can't. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah. Well, straight off the bat, that is one of the main arguments that gets thrown up, not just with the moon landing, but other conspiracies, is about what you said about everyone must be lying, like everyone must have been in on it. And what I've been learned to believe, and it's still hard to get your mind around and my mind around, but decompartmentalization is basically the answer to that. It's basically like, I'm at work, I'm a welder, I'm at work all day. I don't know what my boss is doing. I don't know what his goals are for the year ahead. And basically, the NASA workers are going into their work and working with the criteria that they've been given for that day. It's just like any other job. They're just, paid at a decent salary, and they're not questioning anything. And another thing that I've thought about off my own back is that basically the whole moon landing could have been real to a point, but what I believe, or I'm starting to believe, is that in some studio in the Nevada desert or somewhere, there could have been like a staged, like a set with what is made to look like the moon, and they don't know about that. So everything that they are seeing on their screens, like we should be relatable to that, because of what we see on our screens and our TVs with films and with even the news to a certain degree, that we believe what we are being shown. and maybe the NASA workers, they still believe it. So
Yeah, but going to the extent to where you would like deceive so many people and spend so much money
mhm.
just to fake it, maybe. I mean, I don't know. That seems like a going to the extreme for something that's just not. I mean, maybe I know it was significant, super significant
Mhm.
back then. I don't know. Maybe I'm misreading into it. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of stuff going. That's a lot to go through to just fake a moon landing. I mean, what was hanging in the balance there? I mean, was it a backup plan for if we couldn't get there, or because there was many failed attempts before, and there was
Mhm.
many failed attempts after, for that matter.
Yeah.
Um, was it just a thing for I don't know. I mean, and for us to just say we did it, the Americans did it before anybody else. Was it just something? Was we go through all that trouble just to be able to puff our chest out and say we did it before anybody else did? Is it really worth it?
Yeah. Well,
You know?
we'll get to that. I kind of know what the answer is to that, but what we'll do is we'll go into the official story. I've
Right.
got a little paragraph here. On July the 20th, 1969, just 8 years after President John F. Kennedy threw down the Cold War gauntlet and announced the ambitious goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth, NASA astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, along with Michael Collins, planted the American flag in the dusty lunar soil. So, straight off the bat, you were saying about what was the goal? Why did you feel they needed to fake it? I think the answer basically is there. I think you know more about this. I'm hoping because the whole backstory to why we were, going to the moon and politics at that time and what was
Right.
going on in the world, worldly events is something that I'm not clued up upon. I didn't take history at school, which is my biggest regret because I just love it now. But what I'm hearing, and I have heard from yourself yesterday, we had a quick chat off air, is that the Cold War was happening at that time and they were in a space race. It was like America versus the Soviets to see who could get to the moon first. And
Right. Was we so preoccupied and so just driven to beat the Soviets to the moon that we actually staged a landing. I mean, we know if you get into the information, and I got my notes here. It was I mean, Soviets put the first they put Luna 2 on the moon, which was the first unmanned spacecraft. It was the first anything that ever touched down on the moon. Okay, so the Soviets were really super into getting there, and obviously we sent Apollo 11 there, which was the first crewed mission. This was the first mission to actually have people on it to land on the moon or whatever. But there was this huge space race, and this whole thing, and it's back and forth between Russia and the U.S. And we had to prove ourselves to be superior at the time because these were the two superpowers. These countries were basically running the world, and they were the mega powers of the world, I guess you could say. And there was just this huge race back and forth, and this huge back and forth between us and Russia, but um, that's where this whole thing bases from for me. If they was going to stay fake the moon landing, if they was going to say, well, we made it first, and they would have to. I wouldn't say rush to the moon because Russia was light years ahead. Really, I mean, I would say light years, but they was definitely ahead of us on the race of the moon. They were sending, they sent Luna 1, they sent Luna 2, they sent all these different um, unmanned spacecrafts to the moon, doing research and things like that, allegedly, right? Because some people say they didn't. Nobody ever sent anything to the moon. It never happened. Um, but there was a bunch of, robotic missions, and there was some crewed missions or whatever. But nobody stepped foot on the moon, and just the whole idea of it all. And that's what I guess where this wraps around. And I guess this is the basis of this conspiracy is or the reasoning for it, I guess you could say. The reasoning for this whole entire space race and this back and forth was simply to beat the Soviets to the moon. We wanted to get there before they did. And that, to me, is not a good enough excuse to fake one of the most historic events that's ever happened in the
mhm,
world.
yeah. I think it's also interesting to say that in 1967, the Apollo 1, which I touched on in the intro, um, that was supposed to be the first mission to the moon, but it failed dramatically when a cabin fire broke out during a launch rehearsal, killing all three crew members. And I think there was a speech or a statement that came out after that, and it was basically saying that we're nowhere near ready, and we're failing. We haven't got the technology, and they're quite a bit away. And I mean, I know it's subjective, but 2 years within the 2 years they were on the moon, so it's not a lot of time really. But I'm not a scientist. I don't know what you can do in 2 years, but something I've heard a lot. It's kind of became a fun fact kind of thing is that the technology that we had in 1969 was relatable to like a Game Boy. The Game Boys, the handheld Game Boys that we had. That
Right.
was like the technology. That was the height of technology that we had. And that's not like conspiracy theorists saying that. That's like mainstream that is like that was the height of our technology in those days. It would have been interesting. I should have really looked this up. Like I think the remote control for the TV was invented in 1970, a year later. So
Right, but we have the technology to go to the moon. That's the stuff
yeah,
right there, man. That's
I
the
know.
stuff that gets me. And I'm sitting there, I'm
Yeah,
trying to think. I really don't want to believe in this stuff, but like you just said, 1969, we was not very technologically
yeah,
advanced. Like, but we're building rocket ships with crew with a crew of human beings on it that can go to the moon. We don't even have a fucking remote control at this point. You know what I mean? Like we
yeah,
don't even have nothing. We're just
yeah.
barely getting into our technological advancements. Like we're just starting to get there, but we're able to put a man on the moon. That's the stuff that gets me. I just that just keep going back and forth with this. The more and more research I do, the less and less it makes sense that we actually went there.
That just something that's come into my mind. I haven't even got it written down in the notes, but on the way home tonight, I put my phone on the dashboard, and I was just going through the videos and just letting them play through. And I saw the telephone call for the first time. I had heard that, but here was Nixon on the phone to Neil Armstrong while he was on the moon, and I'm thinking, there's places in this world today that I cannot get a cell signal. Like I'm I heard because I like the flat Earth conspiracy. I get into that a lot, and there's I think the southern hemisphere. There's a lot of the southern hemisphere that you can't get cell coverage, and yet they're speaking to someone on the moon. It's just
Roger, let's get both of you on field of view of the camera for a minute.
Yeah, I think something rather important is coming up here.
Neil and Buzz, the President of the United States is in his office now and would like to say a few words to you. Over. That would be an honor. Go ahead, Mr. President. This is Houston out.
Hello, Neil and Buzz. I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made from the White House. I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you have done. For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives. And for people all over the world, I am sure that they too join with Americans in recognizing what an immense feat this is. Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world. And as you talk to us from the sea of tranquility, it inspires us to redouble our efforts to bring peace and tranquility to Earth. For one priceless moment in the whole history of man, all the people on this earth are truly one. One in their pride in what you have done, and one in our prayers that you will return safely to Earth.
Yeah, in that time period,
I know,
69, like you can get somebody on the moon, but I can't get
I
reception
know.
in my daughter's basketball stadium, like where she's
Yeah,
playing. Like I can't get reception when I'm an hour away from home. I can't get a good cell tower, but we can make phone calls to the moon.
yeah, I know. But again, see when I don't want to come across as cocky. See when I'm saying all these
No,
things.
but see, here's the thing though. Like, before you go into it, it's not coming across as that. It's like maybe there was just a bunch of other things that kind of maybe it was all I don't know. Maybe they did land on the moon, but everything that surrounded it was all just a bunch of garbage that makes you kind of question, like the phone call. That phone call might have never happened. Maybe we landed on the moon, but the phone call never happened. This
Yeah,
is what makes you question all these things. I mean, I just don't see how. I don't know. I'm trying to convince myself otherwise, but the more, like I said, the more and more we dig into it, the more and more I believe that it was faked.
I have heard a couple of conspiracy theorists more recently, and this is even from the 3 years that started. They were like dead against the moon landing. Joe Rogan, for example, but I wasn't thinking about him. I was actually thinking about his friend Eddie Bravo, who was dead against the moon landing, saying that it was the most ridiculous one of the lot. And now he starts saying things like, well, maybe just the footage that we saw was fake, and maybe we did actually go to the moon. It's either one or the other. This is what he says. It's either we've never been out of this Earth and we're like in an enclosed, dome, or we're on every planet there is in the solar system. That's what he says, and that's what makes me, drop. Like I think I said, I was 90% on the moon, and I'm leaving that 10% because I am no expert, but what you were just saying is when I was saying that I don't want to come across as cocky, like I know it all. I am not an expert in any of this, but there is so much. I've got a list here, and I could have kept going. And it's like my mindset with everything is if one of these facts, one of these things here is true, then the whole story is it's gone for me. It's like once you start lying,
Right. Where does it end?
Yeah, where does it end? Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's go through some of these because I got some pictures I want to pull up and I want to show. We have the astronaut sitting in front of the little crater, the see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, right?
Yeah.
You got all these little instances and these little photos that make you question. So I thought that was a funny one, hey,
Yeah.
them trying to tell us something. You have Neil Armstrong's suit that's in the museum and it says it.
Yeah, his footprint.
Right, the suit that he wore with his footprints, but then when you look at the suit, the footprints look like they don't add up at all.
Yeah.
The feet on this has like a circular and like a heel, and the footprint itself had the lines through it.
Yeah.
Does not look similar at all.
No. A lot of these pictures and the footage, sorry, that I've seen. I know the critics are going to go, oh, these could easily be faked and things, but some of the footage is actually being like, it gets banned from social media, and that's a sure sign for me sometimes that it's legit. And there's people that have devoted their lives to debunking this. And
well, because it was one of the world's biggest. It was definitely America's crowning achievement. They still talk about the moon landing today. I heard a speech the other day that said we put a man on the moon, and here we are 20 years later fighting over blah 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 blah. We're capable of great things. Like that's the thing that everybody points to of America's greatness. We put a man on the moon. Like, I don't know. You have the Illuminati. The Illuminati symbolism that they use.
Yeah, I love my numerology and symbolism, but I think I didn't know if I said it on the Mandela Effect episode, but for me, what I use the symbology and the numerology is any conspiracy, I'll go into it in the same way that we all go into them. Like 9/11, we'll take for example, when you look at like, okay, there was I think 3 planes were hijacked, yet 5 buildings fell. Like, you can talk about that all day long, and social media will leave your podcast up or whatever. But as soon as you look into it from the side of numerology and symbology, with New York City having 11 letters, it was the 11th state. It was done on 9/11. There's so much. Aleister Crowley's number 93. It was Flight 93 that hit Tower 1 at 9:03. All these symbologies and numerologies, I use them as like a confirming my bias, and I'll admit that it's kind of, I'll look into the conspiracy, I'll do the same way as everyone else, and then I'll look at the symbology. So it's added extras, really. That's why the symbology stuff I've got written in at the end with Houston. Houston, we have a problem, the famous saying. Houston actually means hewer of stone, which is a Freemasonry thing. The eagle has landed. Well, the Freemasonry badge is the 2 eagles back to back. This is an amazing one that I found yesterday. I was so stunned by this one. I was on history.com, which is a mainstream website. I think it's the History Channel, and I'm reading down through the events in the timeline, and they mentioned that there was a symbol, the Earth and then the two moon, and it was like the flight path. So it took off, it flew around the moon, it went it went around the Earth once, over to the moon, circumnavigated it, landed, and then took off, circumnavigated it, and came back to Earth, right? But the wayhistory.com, and we'll show the symbol here. What does that show you? That symbol right there, it's a phallic symbol. It's a penis. So it's the Freemasonry phallic symbol, the Freemasonry towers that they put up all over our world. And we've got one just down the road. It's just symbology that I like to throw in there just to show you that they're putting their mark on these events.
They love to do that. They love to do that. It's kind of, and I have a totally different approach to looking at the symbology nowadays because from what you told me, it's kind of like just they're putting their stamp on things. Yeah. It's just saying, hey, this was us. Just so everybody else in the world that knows, that practices, the things that we do, just so we did this. This is us. This is our thing. Mm-hmm. So that is interesting because there's a lot of Masonic and symbology when you look at the moon landing. There definitely is a ton of it.
I think everyone knows that Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins were all Freemasons. They're like the secret keepers of the world. I think we'll obviously do a podcast on them because they've been so influential in our world today. But moving on to probably the one we should have started with is Werner von Braun, who is a huge name with NASA. He was actually recruited after World War II when all the Nazis were on trial for their war crimes. America and Russia went over and just pillaged all the scientists, the best scientists that Germany had to offer. And Werner von Braun was the best, and he was taken over to America. And a lot of you all listening just now will think this is crazy stuff because the Nazis were like so crazy and bad in their war crimes. But this is true. This is fact. I was on Wikipedia, and I know that can be edited and things, but it's mainstream that Werner von Braun was the project manager of Apollo 11, and he was with NASA, I think he died in 1977, but he was with them like basically from World War II onwards, 1945 to 1977. He died when he was 65. So doesn't that make you, at least question it that we had a Nazi in charge?
Well, it was no question. I don't know. I think that might be a different topic. I wouldn't say a different topic because it has something to do with this, but we would have never made it to moon if it wasn't for the Nazis and their technology because they had very advanced rocket technology, far more advanced than we ever were. And they did experimental things and they did things that we could never do here as far as regulations and things like that go. So I don't think it should be any surprise when the Nazis went to tribunal and they were being, tried for their crimes, that we took the good ones, right? Yeah. We took the smart. We had to have the smart ones. We didn't get rid of those guys. We had to have those. I mean, that's a whole nother topic of what Nazi went where, because they were spread out all over the United States and all over the world, really, by different organizations. But yeah, it does raise an eyebrow to say, hey, this guy was a Nazi that leaded up this Apollo moon landing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, I don't think, know that. I think they just look at the moon landing and they just want to pick apart the mainstream stuff, and they don't want to really dig into, this guy was the leader of it. This guy ran this stuff. Yeah. So that is interesting.
Yeah. The post press conference is such a crazy watch. It's an hour and a bit long, and it blew my mind that the whole interview. It's actually still up on YouTube. You can go check it out. But honestly, watch it. It's the craziest watch you'll ever see. There's more atmosphere at a funeral. Basically, the three guys are at a podium up on stage, and there's all the press and the media there, and they're firing questions at them. And if I had just landed on the moon, I'd be walking out there like I was Conor McGregor after winning a fight, and I'd just be like pointing at the paparazzi like, you. But these guys are like, they're sat there and they're so edgy. Honestly, obviously I'm not going to do it justice, but they're like sitting there and they're like looking at each other from the side eye, and there's loads of comments. You'll have fun in the comments, seeing everyone like tagging the time. Go to minute 45.3 3.6 and see when he does this. And they're basically, it looks staged. They're so on edge. It's like that, they've basically been drilled to say what they've been saying. But one of the main ones, before I let you button, is the main one that stands out from the press conference is when one of the media asks, did you see the stars? And Neil Armstrong rattles on about like that you can't really see, because he's trying to explain that because they're on a surface, it's kind of it's miragey or something, like it's not easy to see with the human eye. And the guy Michael Collins to his left kind of goes, I don't think there was any. And it's just so weird. But,
well, that don't make any sense whatsoever.
I know,
And like
I
as
know.
I go through this journey and I'm trying to debunk this thing, not seeing any stars absolutely makes no sense. And we'll show all these pictures of all these, different things. And there's all the pictures that were taken. By the way, these pictures are you got to think this is 1969 technology. So
Yeah.
I mean, take it for what it's worth. These pictures are kind of I would say they're pretty good for 1969 technology. I don't know. But there's not a star in the sky.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never been to the moon, so I don't know. I don't, I mean, that's one of them things where, is it fact, is it theory, or is it opinion? I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've never been there, so I can't factually tell you can't see stars in the moon, but I would think that you would be able to see some stars, and I don't know what would be preventing you from doing so.
Yeah. What I think I was trying to get out there is Neil Armstrong's kind of saying with the camera, because he took a camera with him. They were all like built into their chests, and he said with the technology you couldn't clearly see the stars through the camera, but he could have looked up and saw them on a clear night. I can see the stars, and
Right.
they're in space nearer to them. So, but again, what's more interesting about that section is that Michael Collins actually wrote a book years down the line, and in his book he said that the stars were magnificent. Like he saw them and they looked magnificent. So he's lying, and like I've said in earlier on in the podcast, once you start lying, it's a slippery slope.
Right. Then you start to wonder once one lie hits it, then you're like, wait a minute. Yeah, I mean, you sit there saying the stars were magnificent, but we have interviews that
you
people say
froze
you
there.
couldn't see any. So that's when you kind of crack the door open. When you start talking about symbology and everything, there's a lot, and I'd had no idea when you sent me this movie from The Shining, and they love to do this stuff. I swear to God.
Yeah.
That's so crazy that kid's wearing an Apollo 11 shirt.
Yeah.
And then he's playing on the carpet, and then it shows I'm guessing that is the launching site.
Yeah. So
What is all those hexagons, right? Whatever they were, them shapes. What the hell is that?
They are the launch pads for NASA, and the story or the conspiracy goes that Rockefeller went to Kubrick after he watched 2001: A Space Odyssey. It was a film that Kubrick directed, and it came out in 1968, a year before. And they were so impressed with the footage and the way that he'd filmed it that they went to him and said, look, this is conspiracy. So basically the story goes that they wanted to fake the moon landing, if you believe that. And he wanted Kubrick to direct, the whole moon landing. And someone even broke it down in a video I watched where, even like the lines in the background, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin are hopping around on the moon, in the distance, the lines of the contours are the same lines from Ocean Space Odyssey, whatever the film was. 2001: A Space Odyssey. So someone's like, it's like a tactic that camera directors and things know, that you just take lines and build contours. And we're talking 1969. So it's like you have green screens now where it's a lot easier, but in those days you would have to build contours to create like levels, and in those days it was a hard thing to do. So like I said, when they saw 2001: A Space Odyssey, they've gone to him, and he wasn't happy about doing it. Seemingly, the way the story goes, he really wasn't happy about doing it, and his way of getting back at them, because he's silenced, was he dropped a lot of symbols in the film The Shining. And the one that Steve just mentioned is little Danny with his jumper, which is Apollo 11. In the book, which my wife's a great fan of. Stephen King wrote the book The Shining. The room that he was not to go into was room 217. And in the film where Kubrick directed, the room is 237, which is actually, now this is dubious because I've seen that the moon's 240,000 miles away and 240 odd, 230 odd, but seemingly I have saw quotes where it's 237,000 miles away from Earth. So that's his little drop in, that room 237. When Danny goes into that room and he comes out, and you remember his jumper's all torn and his neck's red, like he's been strangled. Is that a metaphor for Kubrick being silenced? You know,
Right.
You know, it's subjective.
It seems, I mean, it's definitely interesting. It definitely makes you raise an eyebrow. I mean, I didn't know. I can't remember him wearing the Apollo shirt, but then you look at the landing sites or the launching sites for NASA. Then he has the, it looks like he's been strangled, and then the key in the room 237, and it's 237,000 miles to the moon. It's a lot of symbology there.
Yeah.
There's a lot there to say. It's just coincidence.
Yeah, the carpet. Yeah, I was trying. Yeah, the carpet that Danny's playing on. This very, that carpet's very. Everyone's seen it. You know, the shapes in it, and that is the exact shape of the NASA launch pad. And then finally, the Tang drink, which you asked me before we came on air, and I haven't seen that. Well, I've seen it recently because we've looked through it, but this advert was a lot in the 1960s. They ran adverts for this drink. I think it was like a milkshake, Tang. And it was like a boy sat at his kitchen table and his mum's giving him a Tang drink. And it's like, if you want to grow up and be a big, strong boy and be an astronaut, you'll drink Tang. And it's so cheesy. And they
Which is disgusting, by the way.
Yeah.
Have you ever had Tang?
Oh, no. Is it still going now?
You can still get Tang, yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. My wife got some, and I said, why do we have this nasty drink in our cat? It's a powder. It's so gross. It's so nasty. It's I don't know, but if you drink it, you'll go to the moon if you want to be an astronaut.
Yeah. So seemingly that was the drink they took on the Apollo 11 flight as well. So in The Shining, there's a scene where the butler is showing Jack around, Jack Nicholson, and then there's crates of Tang in the background. So again, I find these things interesting.
The spacecraft itself. Like I'm sitting here looking at the picture right now, and I'll pull it up for everybody else to see. It's like this thing literally looks like paper mache.
Yeah, that's.
Is that real? Is that it can't be a real. Is that a real? It looks like Scotch tape and paper mache, and like it looks like I could make that in my backyard. I could probably make that right now with the stuff I have. I just need an umbrella and some cardboard.
Yeah. Well, it goes more along with the meme that we showed at the start of the podcast tonight, with the metal melting points, because we're led to believe that the heat of the atmosphere is in the region between 500 and 2000 degrees Celsius, and none of metal melts at that point. So what was this thing made of? And when you see those pictures, it's just ridiculous.
It makes no sense, right?
No sense.
You look at the temperatures in the melting ranges or whatever. Lead's 320. So the moon, I guess, is anywhere from 500 to 2,000 degrees Celsius. Mm-hmm. Yep. Lead melts at 327 degrees Celsius. Magnesium 650 degrees Celsius. I mean, and you go through all these different metals: copper, steel, everything. Mm-hmm. How in the hell did they not melt?
I know.
I mean, this stuff doesn't make sense to me.
No. Another one that ties into what we're talking about here is the famous Don Petit, the NASA scientist interview. This one gets banded about so much on social media with the conspiracy theorists, because he comes on and he says, we'd go back to the moon in a nanosecond, but see, the thing is, we destroyed that technology and it's a painful process to build it back. And even down to like the tape that they had of the footage, they've admitted, NASA came out and said that they had to tape over it because it took up too much storage. And it's like, people have often said, is it because when you come through the Van Allen belt, which is the outer atmosphere of the Earth, which is crazy temperatures, and people don't believe you can actually go through it. But was the footage damaged via that? And it's no. NASA came out and admitted they just taped over it. How crazy is that? That's probably one of the main points I think that struck a chord with me, because landing on the moon is the most amazing thing that we have done without a question of a doubt. Nothing beats that. We've landed on another planet. For a human to do that
Right.
is crazy.
You
Yet,
don't tape over that footage.
you don't tape over it. You guard
It's
that
not.
with
This
your
is
life.
not an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond, and you want to get your child's, dance recital on it or something like that. Like, this is not something you just tape over. Hello, this is the most significant moment in history. Oh, we just taped over that. Really? Like, no, come on. That's funny. That's crazy.
And I think you did touch upon it, that the Neil Armstrong. Well, do you know that press conference I was talking about earlier? That's the only interview they have ever done. I'd be doing interviews every day of my life for the rest of my life if I landed on the moon. I just don't get it. Seemingly, one of them turned to drink and became a hermit. I think that was Neil. Neil's dead now, Neil Armstrong. I think it was him. He didn't come out. He actually came out and did a speech once, but it wasn't an interview. He was doing a speech at I think it was a university or a college in front of like NASA students, and that speech is you should check that out, because conspiracy theorists love it, because he says something along the lines of it's one of the truth's hidden protected layers, and you guys need to uncover that. So conspiracy theorists have jumped on that and said, like, what is he trying to say? Is it not as black and white as we've seen and been shown?
Do you think there's something more to covering all this up and making this stage? I mean, I'm going through all the different reasons on why it would be, I guess staged, or I guess we would lie about it. I mean, there's a lot of I mean, they made a lot of money off of it. They made $30 billion off the moon landing.
Yeah.
They're obviously the space race. They could have been trying to distract us from Vietnam War. You could just go through different reasons. But do you think that there was a, I don't know, just like, I guess, a darker or more sinister reason on why they would they would go through this extent and fake something like the moon landing? I mean, do you think there's a bigger reason?
I think it's simple for me. I think it's taxation, NASA, the whole illusion of space. And I know you'll disagree with me there, but for me, I've heard this saying, I'll probably butcher it again, but it's basically create the belief in something and then worry about like proving it later. And that's what they've done with our kids. Basically, when you think back to your cartoons that you used to watch as a kid, everything is space. Even now, you look at what the kids are watching now, it's all space, space, space. And, at school, we're learned about the 9 planets and Pluto. Is it a planet or is it not? And for me, it's just a tactic to get us to buy into, NASA get 58 million every day, 58 million from taxation. And I probably should have mentioned this at the start when you asked me on, like, everyone must be lying, because another thing that we get thrown at us is that there's private space agencies, but symbology again, I know for a fact every space agency that's considered private has the vector, the vector. In NASA, there's it looks like a V, but it's like a swish. Every private space agency has one of those. They're all controlled, and they're all to give the illusion of, that we are smaller than what we really are. That we are in an endless space with endless possibilities and life, and it's basically to encapsulate our brains and keep us like feeling like we're meaningless and handicapped. Not handicapped in general, just what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get exactly what you're trying to say, and I think you make a good point. Maybe they do want you to seem as if you are insignificant in this large universe, that you're not as special as you think you are, and they just want you to take things for face value, I guess. I mean, I can definitely see where they would be be trying to think of the word here. They would want you to believe you're small and insignificant, so you don't pursue out, higher learning or higher information and things like that. So you don't go out and you pursue something greater, I guess you could say. Just say what you see here on this earth is, and what we tell you, take this for face value. I mean, I guess there would be something to gain from faking the moon landing, but basically, it's just hard to, it's tough. This is a tough one for me, because the more I fucking read into it, the more I believe it. It could have been staged. It could have been faked, especially going through all the different symbologies and things like that. And as we're going through this, I just convince myself more and more. It just convinces me more and more that it was fake. I look at all these pictures and I'm like, man, what the hell? Because this is not something that I've dug into a whole lot. This is something, hey, we went to the moon. I'm not going to sit here and argue it. Never been there. I see the moon. Why can't we get there? It's right there in the sky.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to back up what I've just said, even, I'm just thinking about this just now, but we haven't been back. We're 2020. Yeah. We haven't been back since 1972, I think it was the last attempt. And it's like, why not? And even down to, I'm thinking, they destroyed the footage. Why? Is that because it can't be analyzed now? Like, they don't want the new technology to analyze it and see that it's fake. Even down to like all the presidents, every president from this point, from 1970 on, even up to Trump and Obama, have all said in their inauguration speeches about, we're going to go to the moon again, we're going to go back, and everyone cheers. It's like, and you'll notice if you dig into this, and I know this for a fact, but literally for the 8 years of the presidency, or 4 years, it gets to like 6 months before the date, and they scrap it for some reason. It's like, technical difficulties, or we need to scrap that idea. There's been a problem. They'll always admit it. They'll just come out and say, we've had a problem. We have to scrap that.
I believe something a little bit crazier. I think the reason we haven't been back to the moon is because when we went up there, we discovered that there was something already there. I really, I mean, that might be really far-fetched, but I think there's a reason why we're not going back. And it's possibly because we've discovered, I don't know, maybe they don't want anybody discovering that there is either something already there or something has been there. They don't want you to discover that there is other life out there, and they've been to the moon too, or there's some evidence there that they don't want us to know about, or whatever the case may be. I mean, I've even heard theories that the moon doesn't exist at all. It's just a ball of light, and it's just a deception. I don't know how real that is, but I think that they found things there that they didn't expect to find, and it was kind of like a means to say, hey, we probably shouldn't be going back here, or we don't want this information getting out. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, that might be a little far-fetched and way crazy, but that's kind of where my mind goes. Like, they went there and they found something that they didn't expect to find, and they were like, whoa, we can't go back.
Mm-hmm. I follow NASA on Instagram, and it's so funny. I always comment on it just to wind people up. I just say cartoons for adults, because it's basically how I find it. It's like the donut shaped. What was it? They put up last year. They put up something that was like donut shaped, and then they put up the black hole, and then they say that one planet's texture is like cheese. It's honestly ridiculous stuff. And it's just...
Yeah, I'd seen something the other day that said the planet was 78% THC, so it had to have been like... I'm looking at like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I think it's just to get adults kind of hooked. It's like I said, cartoons for adults. So, but again, I know you're into, like you said in the inaugural episode that we had, that you like the aliens and the paranormal side of things. And I'm interested, I do, but for me, I've always kind of closed myself off to that. I've kind of not really bothered with space stuff, because I like the flat earth stuff, and when you believe in that, you believe that we're in a dome and we're enclosed and no one's ever left, and obviously that's for another show, but that's where I stand on that. So there might be an episode down the line that you will say something and I'll say, something, thinking about the moon landing one, possibly we were there and the footage was fake that we saw, but we actually did go, because I know that's a theory that's out there. Maybe just the stuff that we saw on our screens is faked, but we actually did go, and they haven't, I don't know.
I mean, and they don't want, I don't know. I believe that the moon definitely exists, and I do believe that that I don't know if I believe that we went there now. I don't know. No, maybe we did. I mean, I do believe that something was found or something was, and we just like, whoa. But the more and more I read into this, though, and the more and more I see, I'm telling you, I'm getting more and more convinced that maybe we didn't go. Maybe we didn't go for a reason. Or maybe we staged this whole thing just to say, hey, we've been there. Let's leave this alone now. You know what I mean? Like, let's just not worry about the moon anymore. Like, it's there. We've been there. It's all good. We accomplished that mission. But then again, when you go to independent, like these other space agencies, like what's his name? Elon
Even
Musk.
like Elon Musk, yeah.
He's trying to get to the moon. He's trying to launch stuff into space or whatever. And is he just part of it all too? Because he hasn't been there either. Like they've had failed rocket attempts, and they've sent somebody into space, but he dropped back down. And Fish Islands, the world was round. I'm just saying. But yeah, it's interesting. It's all very interesting, and I'm starting to get more and more convinced the other way.
Yeah,
Maybe it was faked.
Yeah, that's what our podcast's all about. Obviously, in an hour, our podcasts usually run an hour, and we've been at it all week doing the research. This podcast, we could do a part 2 and a part 3 probably down the line. And there's so much, not just with the debunking. I think we've been a bit unfair, possibly, maybe looking into only the debunks and sharing those. But for me, that was the main issue tonight, was just getting the Apollo 11. And it's something we could definitely revisit and learn more about, because it's such a big topic. I think it's probably one of the main ones. Like I said at the start, 9/11, JFK, and the moon landing are kind of the three that you kind of have a benchmark. What's your thoughts on those? And then you move forward with the conversation to see what kind of level that person's on. So
I just don't think this moon landing thing, I just don't think it's something that we can just simply say, just debunk it and say, either one way or the other. But there's a lot of people out there to say, well, they're just conspiracy theorists, they're crazy. But there's a lot of content to this one. There's a lot of content to this one. There's symbology, there's pictures, there's photos, there's videos, there's a lot of things that make you just go, wait a minute. I was watching the other day, and we talked about before we came on here. I watched a video as I'm trying to debunk this thing. I'm watching all these videos with that bubbles, with the little bubbles, and I'm like, it looks like they're in water. What are they doing here? Is this CGI? Like, what are they doing? There's not bubbles in space, but every single space video you see space bubbles, these mysterious space bubbles. And another one is like you was talking about the flag. There's no wind. Is there wind? The flag is moving. Is it? Things like that. Or the guy who just stood straight up. When he was laying down on his back, he just automatically just stood straight up. I mean, the cameras can be very deceiving. I could sit here and clip a video and make you think that somebody said something that they absolutely didn't say whatsoever, or did something. We can watch now. Do you see these videos? I seen a video the other day with a cat that had sunglasses on, and it looked like he put them on, but really it was a reverse video where somebody had put the glasses on and knocked them off. The point being is, videos can be easily deceived and deceptive, and they can make you believe something that really isn't. That's what we go to cinema for every day, right? Is to believe something that isn't real. They could do that then. They had the capabilities, and when you look at a lot of this stuff, it kind of just makes you go, well, maybe they did do that. Because a lot of these photos that we'll show tonight, and a lot of these videos and things like that, it makes you wonder, and I'm sitting here looking right now at the photo of the gentleman. I don't know who it is, but he's creating the moon. He's creating a fake moon. Like, he's laying on it. He's creating a crater. It looks like a real moon, though. Yeah. Like, how do we know? This all goes back. Is it factual? I don't know. I haven't been to the moon, so I have no idea. I'd love to go, though, one day.
Yeah. With the photos and the videos, obviously, the critics are going to say that they could be faked. Like I said, I think the main reason we're doing this podcast is, and again, people are too easily to dismiss all conspiracies. Like, I have a friend on my Instagram, and whenever I posted about the moon landing and the flat earth stuff, it's like, that's so ridiculous. And it's like, if you gave either of these, any conspiracy, just 15-20 minutes of your time, I think it would get you hooked. But a lot of people would just dismiss. They don't want to get into it, whether it be because of their own fear, maybe they're scared to know that we are, because it's that red pill, like you said in the inaugural episode. The red pill is a bitch, and it gets you like, would I go back and take the blue pill? I don't know, but I can see why people don't want to be bothered with this stuff. For me, I love it. I'm hooked on it. I've never been so hooked on something in my life that I'm living this daily. Like every day, I'm going into work, I'm listening to podcast after podcast for 8 hours, and there's so much out there, so much theories, so much, and they are just theories, but a lot of them are actually more believable than the true, the official narrative, and that's all we want.
A lot of these theories have a lot more content to prove them to be correct than others do, and this one's one of those.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've spent the last week trying to debunk this thing and trying to say, this is crazy, but everything I find points the other direction, that this was actually staged and this was fake. I mean, the evidence is mounting. To just sit there to just dismiss it and say, no way. Like, there's no way. You can't do that. Like, we can't sit here and prove to you 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's actually fake. But I'm telling you right now, from looking at all the evidence, there's a lot more evidence that supports the fact that it was faked and staged and it never happened than there is that it actually did happen and it was 100% real. There's a lot more evidence over this way that says it's fake than over this way that says it was real. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you. I think I'm convinced. I mean, when we get into this, to the end of this, and we're about to, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd like to believe that the universe exists, that space exists, that we are not alone in this universe, and I believe in life on a grander scale, and the moon is definitely there, and the creation of planets and things like that. I don't like to believe that we're in a dome and we're just here. That's just my thought process on the whole thing.
Yeah.
I do believe the moon is real. I do believe we live in a solar system. I do, just because when we talk a lot, it always goes back to me to the ancient beings and the very first civilizations. They wrote out very detailed descriptions of the solar system, the universe, how it works, and the moon and the stars and everything. I do believe it's all very real. But just talking about this in particular, did we go to the moon? I'm just not sure. So, I mean, I don't know. Should we go with Penny for your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, go for it. Like I said at the start, I was 90%, and like I said, I leave the 10%. You'll never find me ever saying I'm 100% on here on Penny for your thoughts, because, like you say, information could be corrupted. There's a lot of conspiracies that are out there just to waste people's time and get them going down rabbit holes and not focusing on the real stuff. I know that. I know there's disinformation and things, but the list I've got here in front of me, and we've ran through some, and I've left out, I could probably have wrote another page on the laptop here on my notes. If any of these lines is true, one of those pictures, one of those videos, for me, it's not. We didn't go to the moon. I have to stick with my 90%. I don't believe it.
Okay, now.
How about you, Penny, for your thoughts?
This is interesting for me, okay? I'm sitting here thinking as you're talking. I went into this thing very skeptical, okay? But as the evidence mounts up and more and more and more, like I just said, there's more evidence that supports the fact that we did not go and this whole thing was faked than there is that tells us that this was absolutely real and we 100% did go. The fact that these astronauts don't speak about it, they don't talk about it, they don't do interviews about it. The temperature range, the melting temperatures definitely got me. A lot of these photos, a lot of these different things definitely persuade me to think otherwise. There's so much symbology, there's so much to this, leaning towards this being faked. I went into this very, very skeptical, and I was going to, try to somehow debunk it. But like I said, over the last week, and especially during this show as we're presenting all this stuff, I would have to say I am 70-30 convinced that it was in fact faked. I have to, just because of the sheer evidence. Show me the evidence that said we actually went there. Show me the evidence, because it doesn't exist. As you look for it, you just basically have to take NASA's word for it and say, here's the video, here's this one small step for man, one giant leap. That's all we have. That's all we have. But yet here's this mounting evidence that says we never went there, that it was all staged, it was all faked. So I mean, until somebody comes to me with a huge amount of evidence that says it was 100% real, I don't know. I'm leaning the other way. I'm going to go 70% sure that this was faked.
Yeah, I'll take that. That's good. Yeah, basically you're leaving 30% for the chances that they did go, but what we saw was, studio based. It was fake, and that is something that a lot of conspiracy theorists end up coming around to saying. It's like, was it a backup footage? Record some clips and things just in case something fails, because we can't allow that to happen. We're in a race with the Soviets to get there. So was it just a backup? And I suppose I'm leaving 10%, you're leaving 30%. I mean, I'm just more passionate about it because of my other beliefs. And again, I can be swayed. I'm not going to be stubborn and never change my mind. And hopefully, I hope, like a lot of my beliefs, I often say, I hope I was wrong, because if I'm right, it means we've got a serious problem on our hands with the people that are running our world. Like there's
no doubt about that. I'm 100% sure that is definitely a thing.
Yeah, but that's the same with a lot of these conspiracies. It's like it's the same people in charge, the same people. What's the word? They're running the show with all these projects and things, not just the moon landing. I'm talking the stuff that's happening in today's world. We won't talk about that. We won't mention any names, but it's the same people, the same agendas, and the symbology again. I love it. I love the eye symbol, the picture of Buzz with doing the all-seeing eye and all that stuff. It just adds more into it. Why couldn't it have been an average Joe that went to the moon with competent people? I don't mind that Buzz and that went, but why haven't we been back?
Well, I mean, it's just the symbology is it's in every one of these conspiracies that we do. There's always, say we did a Mandela effect, there's always some symbology. There's in everything.
Yeah.
So it makes you question what's the one consistent thing in all these different things that we always talk about. It's always the symbology. It's always the fact that they know something that we don't. There is this grand scale of information that we just simply don't have access to, and that's what we do. That's why we do this. That's why it's so interesting, is because we are trying to figure it out. They already know. We're trying to figure out what it is that they know. And when you look at this moon landing stuff, it's just it's enshrouded in this secrecy and this symbology and these little things that they do. The only thing that makes me grasp onto that 30% that we did in fact go is the fact that there was so many people involved. But with conspiracies and with these different things that they do and these major events that they conspire against us every day and they create, there's always people involved that have no idea what's really going on. They just play the part, like you said. They just, I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to work. My boss knows. He knows everything that's going on. He's not going to relay that information to me. I can just think I know what's going on or whatever. Yeah. I'm just there to go to work. I do my job. I go home. That's it. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that that the moon is very real, you can go there. Maybe they did go there and they found something that they didn't expect to find, and that maybe that's the case. But just looking at this case in particular, the evidence just mounts up to say that it was not real. Yeah. And it is interesting that it's enshrouded in all these different, the all-seeing eyes and the stuff in The Shining really got me. That was like, wait a minute, because they love to show that stuff through pop culture. They love to use pop culture to show you, their works, or to send little messages to you without you knowing. The cool part about it is people like us exist that pick up on that stuff. Yeah. Even if we don't pick up on that stuff, somebody else will, and we'll just piggyback off of what they've seen, and then we'll just kind of share that information. That's the important part. So for those out there that watch this show and they roll their eyes and they say these guys are absolute morons, you cannot sit there and look at me with a straight face and say the same symbology that goes on in this moon landing is the same symbology that goes on in politics or, you know, in wars and in pop culture and things like that. Like, there's something to this. There's no reason why Lady Gaga and Buzz Aldrin are doing the same symbols, you know?
Yeah.
There's no reason for that whatsoever, other than they're part of a society that we're not a part of. They have information that we don't have, or they're playing to masters that have that information, and they're telling them to do this.
Yeah.
There's something to it, is basically what I'm saying. There is some content there.
I often, when I'm thinking about the moon landing hoax, I often feel sorry for the moon in a way, like if the moon had feelings and that, because it's basically like people, it must feel ashamed that people don't believe that 3 men came on its face.
I was like, what the fuck is he talking about?
It's just like, I had to throw that one in there.
Happened.
I had to throw it in.
No.
Just to lighten the mood. But yeah, even, here's one as well. I know we're going back, but the rocket, when it goes up, because people would have probably been screaming at the computer screens tonight. We haven't even, you know, addressed the whole rocket. Like, we saw the rocket take off with our own eyes. All people did that were there. And the theory behind that is what the conspiracy theorists think is that you actually see the rocket and it starts already, when we can still see it, starts to bend away. And the theory that conspiracy theorists think is that it's basically just landing in the water. And, you know, what's being played on the TV screens is just fakery, you know.
I've definitely never seen one go straight up. I've never seen one go straight up.
I know. Because that shocked me when I saw it, and every one, it does start bending away, and I'm like, why isn't it going straight up? I don't get it. And people have even looked into, like, the Bermuda Triangle. At the time of the rocket launches, there was no flights going over there, over the waters and things, and it's maybe just landing there in the water, and there's no one actually in that rocket, or I don't know. It sounds crazy, that part. I should have maybe just left that out, but
no. It's definitely, it's all interesting. You sent me the video of the one rocket that exploded, and you're like, look at this, and it does look like it's hitting something and it's exploding. I'm like, fuck, man, like, I don't want to.
Yeah, that was Apollo 13. That must have been crazy to see. But did you hear the commentary on that video? The guy wasn't even stunned. He was like, you know, doing the countdown, and like, we're seeing him go through the altitude, and then it explodes, and he's like, oh, we've had a problem here. It's like, he didn't even, but I'd be like, whoa, what am I seeing?
Yeah, no shit. Oh man, I don't know. Are you ready to end this thing?
Yeah, ready to end it. Yeah.
Okay. So that was a penny for our thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being a part of the show. We really appreciate you guys checking us out. Make sure you check out our past episodes, Mandela Effect, and the things that we will bring in the future. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube at Penny for Your Thoughts. And we're on BitChute. We're on, we're on Spotify. We're on Instagram. Make sure you check out all of our stuff. And we really appreciate you guys checking us out. What do you got, Ian?
No, you've said it all. I've really enjoyed tonight's show. It was good to see. You know, during the week you were saying that you're a skeptic. You believed it, and watch you kind of change your mindset. And I thought it was good, and I hope the listeners appreciate that, because Steve's genuine. You know, I know his beliefs on this going into it, and to see someone changing their mind. And I know he's still 70-30, but it's good enough for me, and it should be good enough for everyone. That's all we ask, is open-mindedness. Too many people are closed-minded to conspiracies, and just have a bit of fun with it. Look into it. If anything we've said here tonight strikes your attention, and just go and look into it, and just see what you'll find.
Always remember, there's fact, there's theory, there's opinion, and and right now all of this stuff, with whether we like it or not, is all theory. We haven't been to the moon. We'll never be to the moon. We cannot prove this to be 100% factual until we step foot on that moon. But when you look at this, it is theory, and there is a lot more evidence that supports the fact that it never happened than there is that supports the fact that it actually did. So take it for what it's worth, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thanks,
see you guys. Ian, have a great evening. I will see you next week, Sunday night. Every Sunday, we will be on Penny for Your Thoughts. Thank you guys for checking us out. Make sure you contact us at Penny for Your Thoughts. And we appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Bye, Steve.
See you, man.